Hello, Divine Ones, and Happy New Year and Happy Chinese New Year. It's probably Happy New Year because I haven't been, this is the first episode of the year that I've done. And it's Happy Chinese New Year because this is the 1st of February, which is the new Chinese New Year. So I feel this is an auspicious date, an auspicious time to come. And I wanted to share with you something today that is really important to understand in your healing journey. So if you are healing from something, especially if you're healing from something physically, like you're healing from something in your body, a chronic illness or disease or something like that, this is the miracle point in your healing journey. And I call it the miracle point because once you get to this experience, once you get to this point, miracles begin to happen. This is when you kind of cross the threshold in your healing journey where it may feel in the beginning where you're climbing an uphill, you're climbing an uphill battle. And this is kind of when the momentum kind of goes downhill and it kind of feels like everything is going very well and very swiftly. So I want to talk about what that miracle point is and so that you can recognize it, so that also you can be in motion towards it. And then if you find yourself reaching it, you know what to do next, what your next steps are. So the miracle point in your healing journey comes when you begin to notice the patterns that you have, like the behavioral patterns, specifically behavioral patterns, but behavioral patterns, vibrational patterns, belief patterns that you have that have been starving you of love. And you stop those patterns, particularly the patterns that you thought were protecting you from losing love, but you realize they were actually starving you of love. So before I go into that, I want to give you a little bit of kind of preface around this. So when we're kids, when we are growing up, no matter what our race is or gender or nationality or color, no matter who you are, we all need to receive love as children. Receiving love is a need. It is part of our nourishment as the souls. We are supposed to receive the energy of love. And there's many different ways in which we have to receive that energy, right? We need positive attention. We need affirmation and appreciation. We need acceptance. We need to be allowed to express our full selves and follow our interests. There are many different ways that we need to receive love, but we need to receive love for our whole selves. Like every aspect of our identity needs to be loved. Our personality, our sexuality, our quirks and interests and all of that needs to be acknowledged, paid attention to, accepted, affirmed, appreciated, all of those types of things. And if we receive that type of love when we're kids, what ends up happening is we develop a very strong sense of our self, like our authentic self, who we are. We develop a very strong sense of self. And we've developed a very strong sense of our wholeness and our worthiness, right? And so what I mean by strong sense is that we have a resilient sense. So if we go out into the world and someone tries to challenge that, right? So they try to say you're not enough or you're not attractive or that part of you doesn't belong, that kind of rolls off of us. It doesn't stick. It doesn't seep into the pores of our skin and make us doubt our self-worth or feel we're not enough in any type of way. It doesn't make us feel ashamed of ourselves in any type of way. It doesn't make us feel like we need to shrink ourselves in any type of way. We still stay in our wholeness. We stay in the bigness of our soul's energy. We stay in the authenticity of our soul's energy. And we continue to express ourselves in this life experience. That's what happens when we receive whole love in all the parts of ourselves when we're kids. Now, most of us that are on the planet today manifested in a time where we don't actually receive whole love. We may receive partial love, right? And then sometimes that's not even intentional. It's like not that our caregivers or our parental figures growing up wanted to neglect us or starve us of love somehow, but things happen. They just do. And so we may have been really blessed and to be nourished with love for our intellect, but we may not have been nourished for our personality. We may have been really nourished in our personality and our intellect, but not our body. We may have been nourished for how we look, meaning our body and our intellect, but not our sexuality. And so what ends up happening when you don't receive like whole love, is you begin to believe that there are parts of you. This is what happens in our childhood. And this kind of happens subconsciously. So this is not something that you like consciously say. Usually you don't just, sit with pen and paper and say, okay, this is what's happening. This is what kind of happens at a subconscious level. You begin to subconsciously form these beliefs that say only parts of me are lovable. Only parts of me will receive love, and there will be parts of me that will not be loved, right? And because we all need to receive love as soul beings, love is a need, just like water is a need for our system. Breathing air is a need for our system. Getting in food and nutrition is a need. Love is a nutrient that we actually need to expand and to grow and to be healthy. And so because it's a need and we are oriented to try and get this need met, when we hold these beliefs that there are parts of us that are lovable and parts of us that are not, right? Parts of us. So for example, when I was a kid, I was more effeminate. I was an effeminate kid. I had a very high voice and I was often mistaken for a girl, and my mannerisms were more effeminate than they are today. And I was often teased for that, and I was often made fun of for that. And I was made to feel like the feminine parts of me didn't belong, and that they were wrong, and that they were unlovable. And so what happened is, again, this is where I wasn't shown love for the feminine aspects of me. I was only shown love for the masculine aspects. As a young boy, what my environment and my society and culture was telling me was the only parts of you that are lovable are the masculine aspects of you that you express, but the feminine parts of you are not lovable. And so what that made me believe was that the femininity of me is not lovable. It does not belong. It is something to be ashamed of. And so what happens when we have this is what happens subconsciously is you begin to suppress the parts of you that you were made to feel were unlovable and didn't belong, or that wouldn't be safe as well. Unlovable, don't belong, not safe. You'll suppress those or hide those pieces of you. And then you begin to project. You send a projected version of you out into the world as this is who I am, right? And that projected version of you is an illusion. It's a mask, if you will. It's not who you truly are. It's a piece of who you are, or an act of who you are. And we do this because we have been made to believe that this part of us is the lovable part. And so this is what we project forward, and then we push back behind us into the shadows, into the darkness, the pieces of us that were made to be felt unlovable. And this is what I did with my femininity. I would try to present myself as hypermasculine. I would be teased a lot for how I used to hold my wrist, because I would kind of keep it limp sometimes. And so I would make sure my wrist was very strong and make sure I was, I would police myself a lot. And this is what kind of happens when we send projections, is you start to police yourself. You police the parts of you that you believe are unlovable to make sure that they don't express. Because if they express, what the child part of us says is the wounded child part of us that didn't receive love for that. Well, you can call it wounded, I call it starved. It was the starved child part of us that didn't receive love, tells you that if that part gets expressed, you are in danger, because you will lose love. You will lose love. You will either be rejected, you will be abandoned in some way, you will be shamed, you will lose love. So you push that part of you back, and you project the part of you that you think is going to be loved. Now, here's the problem with that, right? So you're doing this, though. You're doing this out of protection. You're doing this because you don't want your need for love not to be met, right? Because again, it's a need. There's a part of you that understands this. We're not socialized in our culture a lot to understand this, that this is a need, just like water and food, but it is. But there is a part of you that knows that it is a need, and that if you lose it, if it's not met in a way, that is going to be highly detrimental for you. So you're trying to make sure you don't lose this need, right? You're trying to make sure you get this need met. And so it comes from a loving place, right? It comes from the place of trying to protect you from losing love. But there is a problem with it. And this is where the miracle point in your healing journey comes about. So the problem with it is that what it often does, there's a few things, there's three problems with it. One is it never allows you to express the fullness of who you are. And so there's parts of your soul's essence that never get expressed in your life experience, because you are keeping them in the shadows. You are suppressing them, you're hiding them, you're pushing them down. And so what you're literally doing is you're keeping a piece of God from expressing into the world, because you are literally God. You're literally source. You're an aspect, a facet of God and source. So you're keeping God from being expressed on the planet like it wants to. The other part of that is that when it's actually the part that's making you sick. This is what's really important to understand when you're healing from something, chronic illness or a disease. This is part of what's making you sick. It's because your body needs the full expression of your soul to flow through it, to experience wellness. Wholeness is wellness. Your whole energy being in your body and flowing through your body system is wellness. And any type of suppression of that energy, or blockage of that energy, or draining of that energy out of your system is what causes, over a chronic time, is what causes illness and disease. So that's one of the other problems of that. And the third problem is you never experience what it's like when you're in your projections. You never experience what it's like to be fully unconditionally loved. And that is what you are. You are literally unconditional love, and you're here to receive unconditional love. You are literally unconditional love in physical form as a soul being. That is your truth. That is your highest eternal truth that never changes. We are made of unconditional love, and we are made to receive unconditional love. Unconditional love is nourishment. And when we don't allow parts of ourselves, when we're only express ourselves conditionally, right? Only pieces of ourselves are allowed to be seen. Only pieces of ourselves are allowed to see the light. We never experience unconditional love. We never known what it's like to be loved for ourselves. And this has many different detrimental parts, because we project these masks into relationships, and we say, okay, this is who I am, while you're hiding these other parts in a relationship. But eventually this is going to come to the light, because this is a part of you. And then our partner feels betrayed, because they feel like once that part comes up, they think, who is that? What is that? I don't know who that is. That's not who I met. So they feel betrayed. And oftentimes we'll lose love, because the person that, was in a relationship was like, that's not who I thought you were. And also we keep ourselves sick. This is, again, you can't be suppressed. You can't be projected and be healthy at the same time for a long time. It just doesn't happen. You're starving yourself. So you're going to be sick, and you're never going to be happy. That's also the other thing. Happiness is directly correlated with your ability to be fully expressed. So when we are not really expressed of ourselves, when we're not expressing all of the aspects of who we are, right? So when I was keeping the feminine aspects of me suppressed, I was not happy. Was I attracting people? Yes. But was I keeping relationships? No. Was I able to feel free? That's another aspect. You don't feel free when you're, because there's a piece of you literally in prison. You're literally imprisoning a piece of you. So you don't feel free, you don't feel happy, and you're not going to be healthy, and you don't feel loved. But you're doing all of this, right, from a place in your subconscious mind that's saying, I'm trying to protect you from losing love. But this is where the miracle point comes in. The miracle point comes in when you realize that the very things that you were doing, and that the very things that you've been doing this whole time to try and keep yourself from losing love, from being safe, from being, from you know, not being rejected or hurt or abandoned or loss of love, the very thing that you've been doing to try and keep yourself from being hurt is actually hurting you. That's the miracle point. When you realize the very thing I've been doing this whole time to try and keep myself from being hurt is actually hurting me. And it's hurting me because I've never been my true self. I haven't been, this is keeping me from being happy. This is keeping me from being fulfilled and from experiencing a life that will fully fulfill my soul. This is making me sick. And this is starving me of the energy of my soul that I need to be healthy. This is starving me from life force. This is starving me from chi or prana, or however you want to, you know, you need to define it, title it. But this is the energy of my soul that I've been starving myself of, and I can't be well. I can't also manifest my dreams, because when you are suppressing parts, when you're projecting pieces of yourself and you're suppressing other parts, there's no way to really have a high vibration. I don't care how much you meditate. I don't care how much incense you burn, candles, the white candles you burn. I don't care how many chants you do. I don't care how many energy healers you see. I don't care what type of affirmations you recite. I don't care what type of manifestation tools you practice. When you are not in your wholeness, when you are a projected being, when there's a piece of you being projected and there's a piece of you being rejected, right? Because you project something and you reject another piece. When there's a part of you being rejected, your vibration is split. And it's never going to be very high. It is not going to be at the high place that you need your vibrations to be to manifest things. That is specifically the things of your dreams in a consistent and frequent manner. So this is really important. And this is the big awakening point that happens in your healing journey, when you start to actually become aware of all the places you've been doing this. Like, where are the places you've been projecting? Like for me, it was my femininity. It was also, I was projecting this healthy and healed version when there were still things in my body that I was not fully healed yet, but I was projecting this healthy version and totally healed version because I thought that if people thought that I was still healing, they wouldn't work with me. They wouldn't listen to me, right? Again, I thought I would lose love. I thought I would lose belonging. There were also pieces where I used to project, I used to hide and reject my psychic and intuitive gifts because of where my environment. I was in a very traditional and conventional Christian environment, and that I didn't want to receive rejection and to lose the love of my family and my community. So I projected this. I was not really projecting and my wholeness and talking about what I talk about now, but talking about, you know, the soul and energy and vibration and speaking with people on the other side and using my mediumship gifts and all of that, because I was afraid. And this is why you project. Again, you're projecting because you are afraid that you will lose love in some way. So it's understandable, but it's not healthy. So it's understandable why you do this, right? You are trying to survive your circumstance in the time because you're trying to make sure that you're not fully starved of love, But what ends up happening is a lot of times we further starve ourselves of love. We develop these patterns and behavior patterns and projections that actually further starve ourselves of love in ways that we're not aware of. But in your healing journey, when you have a healing journey, that's really one of the reasons why you begin a healing journey is it's telling you, you need to nourish yourself with love and you've been starved of it in some way. And this is the miracle point when you get to a point where you can see that. You can see, oh my God, I've been rejecting my femininity and that's starving me of love. I've not been allowing myself to be seen as not fully healthy right now because in my body, because I thought they weren't going to love me, but that's actually keeping me from being myself, which is actually, again, ironically, keeping me from the healing that I want. I am, there are other things. I used to I was teased a lot for when I was a kid for being a thicker bodied kid. So I was made to believe that my body size was unlovable. And so I would hide that. In pictures, I would try to appear thin. I would do all the tricks and I would never send a full body picture to anyone and all of that because I didn't want to appear thick, because appearing thick was my brain, subconscious brain said thickness was unlovable and undesirable and unwanted and it would not belong. So again, when I realized, I had been doing this, and this has been starving people from the people who really would love me as I am, as my body is right now. If they can't see me in pictures, if they can't see what I actually look like, how will the people who will love what I actually look like find me and love me? So this is what ends up happening, right? You become to this point where you become aware. You really look at, where am I starving? What are the patterns I have of protection that aren't actually protecting me? They're starving me, further starving me of love. And why this is the miracle point is because this is when you can start to release those patterns. You can't release them fully until you become aware of them, until you can see them, you can see how they operate in your life, when you start to operate in them, how you project, when you project. And when you do that and you're aware of how it's actually keeping you from being loved, is keeping you from being your true self, is keeping you from allowing your wholeness to be seen, is keeping you from people from loving all of who you actually are instead of just pieces of that. And when you do that, you can stop it. Right? That was the key to me stopping that. That was the key to me starting to express my femininity out in the world and allowing me to be both masculine and feminine. That was the aspect of me allowing you to say, hey, I am a healer who actually is still healing as well. And I'm teaching from this space. It was a part of me that allowed me to say, hey, I have psychic gifts, and I'm an intuitive healer. And this is who I actually am. And when I began to do those things, when I stopped projecting and I just, and you have to, by the way, a part of this miracle part of this is because not only do you stop your projections, but you go and rescue the pieces of you that you suppressed and that you hid. You kind of bring them out you excavate them from the darkness. You excavate them from the rejection chamber. And you bring them into the light. You bring them into the light. And this is the miracle. I almost want to bring tears to almost wants to make me cry because I've never not seen this been the case in my own journey. And I have worked with hundreds of people around the world by now. And I can tell you, every person that I've worked with who've ever done this is the same thing they've experienced. When you bring all those pieces of you that you kept in the dark to the light and you say, here's who I actually am. And it's going to be challenging because there's still going to be some fear there, right? But you tell yourself, again, this is where your affirmation work and your self-love work comes into practice, that all of me is lovable. All of me is worthy. There is no piece of me that the universe does not desire. There is no part of who I am that the universe does not love. These are affirmations that are very powerful for you to say in your healing journey that will help you begin to express, give yourself permission to express the truth of who you are. When you bring the truth of who you are out into the light, the thing that is miraculous and more beautiful than words, I can tell you this all day with my words, but it is, when you experience it, it is so much more than what my words can do. What you're going to discover is when you bring your whole self and you present it to the light like this, and you say, here I am. This is who I am. You may be trembling. Your hands may be trembling as you present the pieces of you that were in the darkness to the light. They may tremble, and that's okay. Just keep them presenting to the light who you actually are. And as you do that, what you discover is the light takes that from you and it like raises you up over its head and shows you off. Like that scene in The Lion King. If you've seen The Lion King, the animated version, where it's in the beginning where the newborn lion is born, and the character, the monkey character, takes the lion and presents it over the cliff to all the whole kingdom, and they all start cheering and bowing and just like so proud to see this child and the beauty of it. That is what happens for you, guaranteed. What you begin to discover, the miracle that you begin to discover is that all of you is where, in the light is where all of you has always belonged. That is not just safe, and that you don't just discover that part of you is also loved, but that is where it has always belonged, that nothing about you ever belongs in the shadows or ever belongs to be rejected. This is when real miraculous healing starts to take place. This is when the wholeness of your soul starts to be re-embodied in your body. This is when the energy of your soul starts to raise your vibration. This is when you'll start to find out a lot of the illnesses and things that you've been dealing with start to heal without you having to do all that work you were trying to do to heal it before. And not only that, you begin to feel at home in who you are, and you begin to feel truly happy, maybe for the first time in your life, or at least your adult life. And life begins to become delicious in a very miraculous way. And the universe begins to literally bend over backwards to show you how lovable that part of you is. The femininity that I thought was unlovable, people come to me for it now. They celebrate it. I've had people come and say, the type of men that I thought wouldn't be attracted to me if they knew that I was feminine in this way, they are attracted to me because of that now. People, I literally have work based upon my psychic and intuitive gifts, and people come to me and they pay me money for it. My body, like, people love the look and the shape of my body. Yes, I'm thinner than I used to be, but I've been thinner than this and had more muscles than this, and wasn't receiving this type of love because I was still hiding pieces of me. This is the thing. You are ridiculously and unconditionally and eternally loved by the universe. And this life experience is an experience where you are supposed to receive that and prove that for yourself. But the only way that you're going to do that, the only way you're going to see that you are lovable as is, and that life loves you, and that you don't have to be anything else in this world to be loved and to receive your good, is to be yourself, and is to end the projections, to stop starving yourself of love and to start letting yourself be fed with it. And that's the miracle point. And that's when it comes, when you realize that. So the thing about that, like, is to really take some time and look at, how are you projecting? How are you suppressing and rejecting, and what parts of you are in the shadow? And what can you begin to do to try and really bring those pieces out into the light? Now, you may need additional support because this is a challenging thing. This isn't necessarily an easy thing. It's simple, but it's not an easy thing because there's a lot of fear around that. And it depends on how long you've held those fears. If you were like me, you've held them for many, many years, 20 plus years, 30 plus years. And that's if you want help, this is why people like me exist, right? I would highly recommend, working with me or buying my online course, Self-Love Academy, because that we talk a lot about this in there. But if this or working with if not me, work with a therapist or another healer or a shaman or someone that is trained in this type of work to help you support and help you have a loving and safe space to look at what you have in shadow and what you need to do to begin to stop projecting and stop rejecting those pieces and bring those pieces out into the light. Because that is where your wholeness is, that is where your healing is, that is where your wellness is, that is where your happiness is, that is where your highest vibration is. That is where all the good stuff is. Your true whole self as is where all the good stuff is. And that's the miracle that you discover at this point in your healing journey when you get there. So my highest intention and wish for you is that you discover this point for yourself, you get there, because that's when real healing begins. And if you're not there and you need help, I'd love to work with you. You can book a session with me or buy my online course if you don't want to work with me privately, or work with someone else. But just get there, because life is so much more delicious once you do. As always, I love you. And until next time, go love yourself.